What's going on, you guys? So today I wanted to talk to you about wastegates. Now, a wastegate is basically just a device that allows you to regulate the amount of exhaust gases going out of the engine into the turbocharger. Now, the whole point of it is that if you get too much exhaust gas going into your turbo, the boost is just going to keep on climbing until either A, the turbo can't make any more boost, or B, the engine can't handle anymore. And usually it's the latter. So a good wastegate goes a really long way, and there's a couple different types and a couple different sizes. Now, your standard vehicle will have an internal wastegate turbocharger if it's a factory one, and that's basically just a little flap door on the inside of the turbine housing that allows exhaust gases to bypass the turbine wheel and go straight into the downpipe, regulating the boost level. Now, with an external gate like this is going to go on your exhaust manifold or exhaust crossover pipe or anywhere before the actual turbocharger to allow those exhaust gases to escape, and that'll regulate the amount of gases going into the turbo and the turbine speed, and therefore your boost pressures. There's a couple different sizes for wastegates that you would want to run or could choose to run. Now, I have the GVW series here by Garrett, and we have a 40 millimeter gate, which is 40 millimeters on the inlet there to the wastegate. We have a 45 millimeter gate, and this is probably the most standard size that you're going to want to use on anything. The 45 seems to be a really good size for smaller and larger engines, single turbo, twin turbo. I run two of these on my car actually, and they work really, really well. And for the larger gates, you have the Garrett GVW 50. And just looking at a side-by-side comparison here, you can definitely tell the difference. I'm pretty sure it's obvious which one is the small one and which one is the larger one and which one's the medium one. Now, having different size wastegates like this to choose from could probably get a little bit confusing as to what you want to run. Maybe you think that you don't really want to run that much boost and you're not trying to make a ton of power, so maybe you decide I'm going to go with the small wastegate here because I don't need to make tons of boost or tons of power. But believe it or not, that's actually the opposite of what you would want to do. A lot of people would think small wastegate, small boost, big wastegate for big boost. But it's actually just the opposite of that. If you want to regulate your boost pressure and run low boost, especially on engines that have a lot of exhaust flow or engine displacement, so they're moving tons of air out the exhaust, and you want to keep that boost level low, you're going to want to run a bigger wastegate. That way you can evacuate more wastegate gases to keep the boost levels low. Another thing to think of is if your engine doesn't have a lot of displacement. If you're running a small 1.5 liter engine, that's a lot different than running like a 7 liter V8. You don't need to have a wastegate this large for a small 1.5 or 1.8 liter engine. A wastegate this small will actually probably be just fine for you. So for example, for me, if I had a small engine and I was running maybe like 15, 20 pounds of boost, I think a GVW 40 would probably be fine for that. If you're running a big 7 liter V8 single turbo, and you want to stick with a single wastegate, I think a GVW 50 is where you're going to want to go. You'll be able to regulate your boost and keep it down around that like 4 to 6 pounds of boost if you need to. For me personally on my car, I'm running two GVW 45s on a single turbo with a crossover, and it is a 6 liter V8. And with two of these, the lowest I'm able to get my boost pressure regulated down to is about 4.5 pounds of boost. We can still make great power on a 6 liter with that. So having the ability to turn it down that low is really nice. Plus, you don't want to go too small on your wastegates and then go on the dyno and realize, we can't turn this down any lower than 15 pounds of boost and not be prepared for that. For me personally, I think the 45 is a good median in between, letting you get to those relatively low numbers. And with boost control, you can keep turning it up after that. One of the issues I have seen, though, running wastegates too small, though, is that you can get boost spiking issues where your boost will spike off and then start to fall off. So say I was going through my data logs and I was running 10 pounds of boost, and I seen my boost curve start to go up past 10 pounds, hits like 12, 13, and then falls back down to 10 pounds. My wastegate might be a little bit too small, so I might need to actually go to a bigger gate because it's not getting those exhaust gases out fast enough. So with the 45, we seem to address all of those issues. I've tried running 38s in the past on it, and I did have that issue of boost spiking before being able to fall back out. So going to the 45 solved those issues. It goes right up and then stays relatively flat all the way. It does have a little bit of maybe like a half PSI deviation up top where it flattens out, but enough tuning time on the boost controller and you can get all that stuff dialed in. Now, while on the topic of boost control, there are several different ways you can actually control boost on these wastegates. So the first thing you're going to want to do actually is pick out the correct spring you want to run inside your wastegate. So there is a chart and a full spring kit that comes with these, and you're going to want to set one right around your target boost pressure of what you want to run. Say you want to run 7 PSI. You want to get the 7 PSI spring and put it in there. Now, it is probably going to end up being a little bit under that due to exhaust gas back pressure. You are going to have some of that pressure being pushed on this piston to help compress that spring while it's under boost. And then you add in your boost pressure that goes in your side fitting right here to help lift the piston to open it and regulate the gases. And usually it could be a 2 to 3 pound difference, but depending on your turbine housing size, your exhaust manifold runner size, what your actual velocity of your gases are, that can change the amount of back pressure that's in that tube having to push on this. So the lower your back pressure, the lower the difference is going to be. But once you start getting into higher boost numbers, you can get 15, 20 PSI back pressure on these where you're going to need to run a little bit of a stiffer spring to keep that boost up. Now, a good solution for that is CO2 boost control. With CO2 boost control, you can run the softest spring you want in here and not have to worry about this wastegate opening it up until you want it to. The only downside to CO2 is it is the most expensive option for boost control, but it is by far the best option for boost control. I personally don't run it on my car because I don't like having to worry about getting bottles exchanged, and if a bottle goes empty, you're kind of SOL. Other options are twin Mac valve control, where you will actually apply a positive pressure to the top of the dome here, which will help keep that closed. And then you'll have another one of the Mac valves running into the bottom, which will want to lift it. And the way those solenoids control, whether it's sending to the top, sending to the side, or purging out, will allow you to control the actual piston while putting a positive pressure on the top to try to help keep it closed when you need to. I'd say that's probably one of the easier options to do that way. Another easy one is a simple single Mac valve where you will just have a pressure line coming off your turbo into the Mac valve and then into the bottom of the wastegate here, which when activated will apply a pressure to the bottom of the wastegate here, which will lift the diaphragm and in turn lift the piston, allowing the exhaust gases to flow through and exit, bypassing the turbine. And probably my least favorite option are manual boost controllers, where it is the same thing as the Mac valve, except it is just a little turn knob. Most of them are just bleeder valves where you turn the knob and it just consistently bleeds off a certain amount of air, making it require more pressure to make it through the hose from the compressor housing to the wastegate to actually lift it. I've found those options to be pretty inconsistent. Usually you will see, inconsistent boost pressures, spiking, falling off, just not the best option. A good electric valve is the way to go, especially if you have a standalone engine management system that can control it and just control the duty cycle, and you can get it all tuned in, dialed in real nice. And it makes it super easy to actually control the boost that way. That would be my recommendation, is electronic boost control all the way. Especially if you have something like a Haltech that makes it super easy to control boost, that's the way I would go. One of the last things I want to cover real quick is actually how you should mount your wastegates. There are a couple different ways I've seen people mount them. Ideally, you would want to mount these at any high pressure points in your exhaust system before the turbo. So say you have a bend around a corner, you would want this to come straight off that bend there. That way you have a high pressure pocket right here, and that's where the exhaust gases are gonna want to go. So you want it to have a nice smooth flow out the exhaust. You don't want to have it pointing backwards from the flow of exhaust gases, because that's kind of what creates a Venturi effect, and you will have absolutely terrible boost control doing it that way. So you want to mount them in the flow direction and preferably at high pressure areas in the exhaust system. So I just want to give a huge shout out to Garrett for sending me these to get my hands on. These things are absolutely beautiful. I'm so happy to actually have these on my car. I've been looking to make the switch to these for a while now, and I'm pretty glad I did. They work great, and they look good too. They match my turbo now. Now my turbo and my wastegates are Garrett, so that's pretty cool. I'm super stoked Garrett actually came out with these and made something, and the machining and everything on these is just absolutely beautiful, just absolutely top-notch quality. If you guys might be wondering on how to check spring pressure with an air regulator, I do have a video where I did that a long time ago. I will post a link to that in the description. You can check that out. It actually makes checking out what springs you have and like the actual pressures they're going to be opening at way simpler than just like tossing a spring in and checking. There's super easy ways to check with an air regulator, and I do have a video to that. So that will be posted down in the description, and it's come in handy before. So as long as you're at the right point with the air regulator, it's not going to be any higher than that. But like I said before, with the exhaust pack pressures, if anything, it'll be a little bit lower. So always better to go a little bit lower than higher and be able to dial it up with a boost controller. Anyways, guys, that's going to be it for this one. So like the video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Follow the builds along. Till the next one, I'll catch you guys later.